Today, I want to talk about the scale, how in some cases it could be your friend, but it's a more long term friend, not a short term friend. And, there's real people like that in the world that you should also be aware of. There are people that are only good for the moment, for the time that you kind of don't need them at all. The fair weather friends, the ones that don't really come around when you're going through the shit and could really care less. Then you have those friends that you can become absent, you can disappear, and they still reach out, they still try to help. Well, that's kind of the scale. And I think that's the more important part of today's conversation, where you'll realize very soon, if you've tried to lose fat at all for any time, or even trying to gain weight, that scale doesn't like to really do a lot. And in fact, when you're completely not even eating anything, the scale likes to increase. Well, it's actually your biology impacting that. But let's talk about this for a moment. Let's unpack a couple things. So you're trying to lose fat. Maybe you've tried to do this your entire life, and it's very frustrating. And as human beings and our bodies themselves, they really don't want to lose the fat. Once we gain it, which seems to be a lot easier than losing it. Once we gain it, it seems that our body's kind of pretty quick to adapt. They're like, oh, this is good. This is good. Now we have extra. Now we have more energy on us. Not that we really like it from ourselves, from our own person, but our bodies, they don't hate it, right? So it holds on to it. Now, gaining that weight is a lot easier now because of all the ultra processed food. Sugar in everything. Carbohydrates are kind of a problem too. It just depends on how much you're ingesting and where the carbohydrates are coming from. Carbohydrates from vegetables, for example, might not be as bad for you as carbohydrates that are in an Oreo cookie or a bag, or the double stuffed ones, or donuts, or pastries, or pizza. So you have these foods that are incredibly palatable. They taste great, and they have something called a very high bliss point. And that's really the number of the game is the money and the revenue that's be able to create it, be able to be made, plus the manufacturing of food that's super inexpensive and cheap to make. That's the game. And in fact, when you look at who owns these major food conglomerates, it was the tobacco companies that started picking them up right after they went through all their mess with the lawsuits about how their scientists were engineering cigarettes to be more addictive. You just couldn't have a regular cigarette. You had to have a super amazing, highly addictive cigarette. Well, of course, their ship was arrived and they made a boatload of money, but then a lot of regulations, attorneys, scientists, everybody else came down on them, and even the regular people. Lawsuits galore, payouts galore. What are we going to do now? Hey, let's just buy up food companies, and then we'll do the same thing with food, and we'll wait until that runs its course. And it hasn't run its course yet because there hasn't been the lawsuits or anything else, but eventually I would imagine that's probably the same place it would be. So the food was now created by scientists. It was already pretty good. Now it's even better. And I mean better, not in a good way for us, but better in a money-making way for them, with something called a bliss point. They made food so good, so blissful. When you eat it, it just strokes your body into wonder and awe because it causes a dopamine burst, and it's incredibly addictive. As addictive as, well, some of the drugs that are pertained to be illegal or that actually are illegal: cocaine, heroin, these other things. In fact, when you take certain drugs, it lights up the same areas of the brain as doctors say that some of these highly palatable foods light up, including sugar. But when you can take sugar and you can package it with fat and you can package it with nonsense, then when you ingest it, that nonsense in there makes it like, I don't want to stop eating this. The nonsense in there actually shuts down the part of your body that says, that's enough. I don't want any more. Or the part of your body. Have you ever heard people say it's too sweet? Give me a break. There's no such thing. Being a food addict myself, of course. But it does shut down all the mechanisms of the body that are generally there to say, okay, that's enough. You've eaten enough, Connor. No more of that food for you. But oh no, it's always like you always have room for that type of food. You eat a steak and a couple eggs and, you're really feeling full, but somebody says, hey, how about this? How about this dessert? How about a donut? How about an apple fritter? How about an old fashioned? What do you want? Name your flavor. Cupcakes? Oh, sure. Any of that stuff? Yeah. There's always seemingly room for that. Ice cream, of course. So there's room for it. It's that high bliss point. It's that massive bliss point that they engineer on food. So now you're trying to recover from that. You're like, well, I got 20 pounds, 200 pounds, 400 pounds. The more you have to get rid of, the kind of faster it comes off. But there are segments of that weight loss struggle, that weight loss endeavor, that are going to carry with it some weird weight gains that aren't going to make any sense. And that's where the brain starts to take over and say, ha, see, it's not working. You might as well give up and go back to it. Because realistically, the body in of itself doesn't really like to change a lot. And who does? You probably don't like to change much in certain areas as well. Somebody comes along and says, you know what, every day you're going to need to go for an hour walk. Oh, sure. We're going to do that. We're going to do that tomorrow. In fact, you know what? The weekend's coming up. It's Friday. We're going to wait until Monday, but we're going to do it. Yeah. That carries its own pain with it, right? But you know it's right. You know it's good. You know you shouldn't be eating a box of donuts. You know you shouldn't be eating 3 bowls of cereal or Cinnamon Toast Crunch or all those, whatever it is, insert name here, all that pizza, all that fried stuff, depending on, of course, what we're talking about, what the batter is, the flour that's involved. You know that these things probably aren't best for you, but trying to cut them out, well, let's say you succeed. Let's say you either go with a caloric restriction model where you're shaving off 500 calories a day, and after 7 days, if your body follows true and the metabolism in your body doesn't change, and you modify your caloric intake 500 calories a day below what your normal expenditure is. And this is difficult to really get into for the people that are 600-700 pounds, because just to maintain that weight, there's 7,000 to 10,000 calories a day necessary just to hold on. So if they were to cut down to 5,000, which would put fat on me like a crazy person, but if they were to cut down to that, they would have a massive caloric burn and probably drop 3 to 4 pounds per week, if not more. And the first part of that, depending on how they modified their intake, if they went from eating sugar and carbohydrates to cutting that off and just eating strictly, fat and protein, then that weight loss would be massive, because a lot of the weight loss at the beginning is going to be water, huge amounts of water. And a 600-pound person dropping 40 pounds, 50 pounds of water, and all that inflammation in 2 or 3 days of not eating carbohydrates or sugar. Yeah. So you see that massive weight loss, even if you're just a regular Joe, Jane, and you say, you know what, I'm going to start by not eating any more carbohydrates in my intake for a while. My main staples are going to be some certain vegetables, no fruit. I'm going to eat eggs, meat, and fish. That's what I'm going to eat. I'm not going to put ketchup on it. Condiments, I'm going to be very careful of, because condiments carry their own caloric intake or carbohydrates. It depends on what. Salt and pepper, good. But, if you're starting to use other things, mustard's a 0 typically, but maybe it causes other problems. Don't know. Ketchup, loaded with sugar. Non-sugar ketchup, yeah. You have to answer all these questions for yourself. But let's say you're just able to stick with that. Even you will see a massive drop from water on the scale. And it'll be the most incredible thing you've ever seen. But then we get disappointed. It's not fast enough anymore. Now it takes a while. Now, in fact, even when I water fast, I could be 280 one day, and I could water fast for 3 or 4 days. And day number 4, I actually go up on the scale of water fasting, and I haven't changed anything. That's irritating. It's like, are you serious? There's nothing coming in, nothing at all. Yet I was, in fact, gained weight. Where does the weight come from? Is it water? It has to be. And what's happening? The body is probably a little nervous. Well, you're basically, as far as the body's concerned, you're starving because there's no food coming in. But realistically, you're not starving, because what do you have on your frame for energy? Fat. Your body is very good. Your body was made to access that stored body fat. We weren't made to walk around with all the visible fat on the inside. And for sure, we weren't made to walk around with the fat on the inside called the visceral fat that's inside when you get to a certain point, starting to choke out your internal organs. The good news is when you start to drop fat, and not eating fat is not how you drop fat, but you either do caloric restriction or you do fasting, longer times between meals, so your body has a chance to access the fat. The good news is it starts with visceral. It gets rid of that. And the last thing to add, the killer fat, is the visceral. So if you're overeating and eating, once you start to get your skin distended and you start to pour on a lot more, probably somewhere before the stretch marks. I'm not a doctor. I don't know this to be fact, but probably somewhere before you start to really develop the rolls and everything, the visceral fat begins. And then the visceral fat probably has it in too. It gets as much as it possibly can. Now you go back to the body and you really start growing. Don't get frustrated. The scale is great. Just understand that mental obstacle when you get on the scale and you get weighed, that it might change for the worse the next day, even if you're doing this the right way. Don't let that be the reason that you say, really, this isn't going to work. It's ridiculous. I'm going to go back to eating my ho-hos because they make me happy. I think when you continue this and you look at it over time, as somebody that took several months to drop a lot of fat, it takes more time being good than bad. If you blow it out and screw it up, great. Admit it, own it, and move on. Don't let that screw up that singular meal, because you know once you swallow that donut what you've done, especially if you had some kind of deal with yourself that you're going to do this for this amount of time because you're trying to achieve this particular weight. And even better, the decision to do this shouldn't be just for a temporary amount of time. It should be things that you can't hold in moderation because you're addicted to food. Maybe you're addicted to sugar, donuts, carbohydrates, you name it. I'm probably addicted to it, but that's when you need to cut it. Moderation for alcohol, for me, can't do it. I won't do it. I've decided I'm not going to do it. That decision wasn't easy, especially just for somebody that loves to drink. Cigarettes was another thing. Yeah, cigarettes, that was tough. It took hundreds, if not thousands of times deciding I'm going to quit, applying it, and then trying and then failing before I actually did it. What was different? It wasn't a book. It wasn't a group. It wasn't somebody telling me something. It just worked. So maybe this next time you're going to venture out to try to drop some fat, maybe it's just going to work because you're going to stick to it. You're going to have more good time than bad time. And if you can get that good time to 70, 80, 85% of your total time invested into the cutting of fat program that you enlist in, then you're going to make it. It's just going to take time. And don't let those little momentary moments of biology where your scale is registering at a higher weight when you know the calories you ate or the fasting you conducted. There's no good reason why you would be heavier on the scale, except for the body is the body, and it really doesn't like getting rid of it. I'm no doctor. Talk to your doctor before you skip your next meal or skip eating that Snickers bar. Maybe you should have a conversation with your medical professional. Say, listen, I'm not going to eat this bag of candy tonight. Do you think that's going to be all right for me? And seriously, though, find out. You might be on medicines. If you're going to quit eating for a couple of days, that could be an issue with you. Maybe the medicine hits like a sledgehammer when there's no food in the body to work it over. Ask yourself the questions. But the scale, it's a fair weather friend. The scale isn't good for those momentary weights. You track your weight on the scale over weeks and over months. Understand something. You didn't put all of that on in a month. It took a while. And if I'm talking to people that put on 5-10 pounds in a month, you can fix that if you want to. For the people that are fat, have been fat, really fat, have been fat a long time, that scale is going to become something that you use today, and 6 months from now you look at. You look at these bodybuilders, right? They're all massively impressive. They get huge. They'll put on 60, 70 pounds of fat over time as they're bulking. When they go into a cut, and I often think about this, I'm no bodybuilder, but I often think about this, that's a lot of discipline. Good for them. They're treating their body as their business. And other people treat the body as the business too. You see those same influencers on the other side of the scale. They're eating and eating and eating these gross amounts of food, entire three bags of Oreos as cereal in the morning. You might have seen that, cat. Or massive pizzas, or 3 or 4 pizzas, I should say, and all the extras that go with it, and they're eating it on camera. Well, maybe they're going to be cutting in the future, and they're going to use that cut as being the proof that they can actually do it. I don't think so, because that's next level, but bodybuilders do it on the other end of it. Maybe there's a balance at least in there. I don't know. If you're a bodybuilder, then you know better than me your drive and what you're trying to do, trying to get to the Olympia, trying to get to one of those levels. And good for you. You're a person that's on Instagram trying to get super fat, super, super big. Well, I guess good for you too. But if you're not happy with who you are, if you're not happy with how you are, then those small changes extrapolated over time continue to be reinforced. When you mess it up, apologize, move on. And you're apologizing to nobody. You're apologizing to you because you just screwed up the path. But acknowledge that, own that, and then move on. At the moment you eat the donut, you eat the whatever you're not supposed to be eating because you know what you're not supposed to be eating. Come on. 3 pounds of rice and beans. Yeah, stop it. That doesn't work. So once you get there, understand the scale over time is going to be a much better friend than the scale each and every day. But over time is what you want. And you didn't get here overnight. You're not going to solve it next week. That weight loss you lose at the very beginning when you start to restrict a certain type of food, whether it's carbohydrates and sugar, you go into a carnivore, some kind of paleo system, and you're eating just good food, just eggs, fish, meat, some vegetables. Yeah, that's it. That diet, that way of eating, you can carry that in the rest of your life. That would work great. That would get you there and keep you there. Well, you got to want it. And nobody's going to come knock on your door and say, I'm here to help, because nobody cares. You got to do it for you. You've really been given $1 billion body. There are a lot of people out there that probably don't have the wherewithal and ability that you have. And maybe you should own that one as well. I'm Connor with Honor, thelastaddiction.com. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.